Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, a special show for everyone out there because you want to get in on the DraftKings Thanksgiving slate. You got 3 games, and we're going to break it down for you. Talk a little bit of strategy for a 3-game slate and how you can maneuver your lineups. And then coming up a little bit later on, we're going to do a game-by-game preview with our spread picks with Tim Andercust. He'll be on the line. He's working triple duty this week, and we'll be back on Thursday for the full game previews and picks. And Wednesday, we'll be covering the Sunday slate as it pertains to DraftKings. But this is just Thanksgiving only, and help me to break down everything on this slate from fanvice.com at JazzRazDFS on Twitter. It is Ben Arriba La Raza. What's going on, dude?
Hello, sir. How are you?
You're becoming a fixture, a mainstay, if you will, a regular every week.
I'm on a run here on the Pat Mayo Experience. Not bad. It's I always get a boost when I go on these shows, so that's why I got to do them anytime I get the chance.
Well, the whole thing is, I mean, usually when you appear on the golf show, you win 5 figures. But this week, Jeff Bergerson was on the golf show, and then he won $70,000 in a King of the Beach spot playing football. So I think it's the golf show bump that you got to get back on the golf show.
Yeah, no, that's yeah. Come January, I'll have to get you some favors to get back on it, because every time someone goes on that, all of a sudden the screenshots follow pretty quickly.
Yeah, this was I went over it on the waiver wire show. It was a gigantic week for a lot of people. We've had a lot of viewers sent me some big football winnings last week. Obviously, after we hit Austin Cook 90-1 on the show, there was a lot of DraftKings GPP winners for golf. People just outright bets cashing big money this week. Someone won $23,000. Someone won $15,000. I myself cleared $3K in golf. It was excellent when it came down to that. Did you have a good week 11?
I had a good NFL week. Yeah. Golf was a disaster. That was real bad. But no, the NFL, I did good. I got definitely ran good. There's no doubt about that. I had a lot of really bad teams, ton of Ingram, but Keenan Allen really bailed me out, him and Cooks late. So a lot of it's actually tied up to Thursday, Monday, so I have to sweat out Tevin Coleman tonight. Hopefully he doesn't go nuts. That's the only thing that could really hurt me.
Well, the big thing that we talked about on the Friday show was pivoting on to LaShawn McCoy because it seemed like no one was going to play him, and that turned out to be the smart move.
Yeah, that worked out perfectly. Him catching that pass late in the game for the touchdown was gigantic. And then we talked, it was terribly cruel, but Rex Burkhead, the only thing I didn't want to see was him fumbling the ball early. And, of course, he put one on the ground, and that I don't think helped his cause.
No, I don't think so either, but I think it made a lot of sense that, like we talked about, if you just fade Burkhead, the downside, unless he went off, it made a lot of sense to, what did he end up in the Millionaire Maker, like 25, 26%?
Yeah, no, all those Patriots were super pop. It was just a wild, obviously, when we had talked last, I didn't think there was any chance Sterling Shepard wasn't going to play. That changed the whole slate. It
really did. But one of the big things that we did talk about, like if you're going to eat chalk, it's always tough to trust a chalk defense. And then the Chargers were only like 15% owned anyway. But just like if you had rolled out the Chargers D, you were good to go.
Yeah, no, D's are just getting out of control. That was the stupid Jaguars lucky touchdown at the end. That was quite painful for me. I didn't want to see that. But yeah, I can't complain. Definitely a good week. I was really happy to see. It didn't look good coming into the 4 o'clock games, but I pulled it out somehow.
All right, well, let's keep it going. I got no golf to pad my stats this week, so we got to win some football. Yep. We'll talk about the main slate. We'll start with quarterbacks first, and we're going to talk about 6 of them. You got Cousins. He's $7,100, the most expensive here, $400 less than that. You got Dak Prescott coming off a game. Still no word on if Tyron Smith's going to play, but I think that's a gigantic factor this week, especially against the Chargers pass rush. Then you have Rivers at 61, Stafford at 6,000. He's on the Case Keenum at 5,300. Then Eli Manning at $5,100. On a short slate like this, would you be willing to pay up for Kirk Cousins? Because for me, I think the 2 quarterbacks I like the most are either Case Keenum or Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, I do like it's pretty cool. There's only 6 teams, but all viable options. I think that will spread ownership pretty fairly. Sometimes you get a short slate with a couple guys that are just useless. They're really going to inflate. So I don't mind obviously going all the way up with Cousins. He gets it done. He puts up massive lines. And now that, we'll get to obviously their running back situation. They're losing guys left and right. But yeah, Rivers. You mentioned Rivers. He's definitely sneaky in the mid-range there. Obviously, he played. He was a little banged up. Played well. They smoked Peterman and the gang in Buffalo. But Yeah, Dallas is hurting, so I think I'm going to start there, obviously. But I do like that you kind of make a case for almost all six of them. There's no real egregious plays in there.
Is there one that you're really leaning towards, or do you think it depends on what you do with the other positions and see how much money you have left?
Yeah, I mean, with a shorter slate, you do have obviously have to find leverage spots because you just don't have that m many options. But just looking at it right now, I do like Cousins at home against the Giants. I really expect him. He's not overwhelmingly the most expensive. You do have to pay up. You get 1,000 cheaper if you go Rivers. But yeah, if I can and afford it, I'm just gonna go Cousins.
I think Stafford is a pretty interesting option. Just looking at his past few games at home, 22 points against the Browns, 21 points against the Steelers. That's a tough defense to go up against. 16 points against Carolina, another really tough defense. He only had 10 DraftKings points earlier this season when they were at Minnesota, but now that he's back at home, I think it's going to be difficult for the Lions to establish a running game here. So I can see, with the way that the offense for the Vikings has been rolling and they've been putting up points, that Stafford might drop back to throw in this game like 35 plus times. I don't think that anyone's really going to think about him. It's probably the toughest defense that any quarterback is going up against, but I think that volume-wise, you might get low ownership on Stafford and a potential for a lot of touchdown upside, if nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the Lions don't really have a running game to lean on, and they need this game. I mean, this is a big one. Minnesota's rolling. If they have any chance to catch him, they're going to have to win this game at home, which I do like. I think Vikings, I say this often, are one of the teams when they're away from home, they're kind of a different unit, especially on defense. So I don't mind him. I kind of have him and Rivers grouped in that next tier. The guy I mean, Dak is struggling right now. I'm not saying he can't have a good game, but clearly they're going to have to figure something out when Elliott's not coming back. So I'll either go up or those mid-range guys kind of are appealing.
I think if Tyron Smith plays, then I think you can play Dak Prescott. But if he's out, I just see Bosa and Ingram just murdering him this week.
Yeah, no, the Chargers have serious dudes. I mean, their pass rush is going to be obviously Dak can move and that does help, but they're going to be after him. So no doubt about that.
It hasn't helped him the last 2 weeks, and that was against the Eagles and Falcons, who have like average pass rushes. Now they're playing an elite pass rush.
Yeah, I mean, Adrian Claiborne literally he like doubled his career sacks in one game. It felt like it was just obscene for the Falcons. Obviously Dallas has got some serious problems right now.
Let's talk about short slate strategy just for a second. What are some tricks that you can do to differentiate your lineup? Because frankly, when I play on short slates, I don't really worry too much about who's chalk and who's not. I realistically just, there's so few players that if I think someone's going to be good, I'm just going to play them. I know that sounds super simplistic and just very rudimentary, but I think that people overthink short slates a lot. And if there's a cheap guy who's a value, play that guy. If he goes off, you're probably going to win.
Yeah, I mean, short slates are a totally different animal, and you kind of do have to adjust. A couple of little things, obviously. The first thing that stands out is you don't really have to worry about the cap as much. You don't want to leave 5,000, but if you have a team and it has 800 left or 1,000 left, and you really like it, you don't have to worry about that. Just because there's limited options, you shouldn't try to get right to the 50K. And then the other thing is, obviously, usually in a bigger slate, you don't want guys going against your defense. That's not as big a deal here. Not saying you don't want to stack, your quarterback and your receivers and then play the defense they're playing, but you can have a guy here and there, especially, you just talked about someone like the Chargers. They could turn over Dak, they could have 10 sacks, and you can still play someone like Dez against them and be fine in only a 3-game slate.
And I think doing little tricks just like using 2 tight ends if there's 2 tight ends available to you, just people don't do that. And that's just a really easy way to differentiate your team right off the hop and not have to worry about it.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. I mean, with such a short slate, you have to find a way to kind of stand out. I mean, the pool is so small, everyone's on the same core guys. So just roster construction, I think, gets a boost, finding a different way, even if it's a unique kind of combo. Obviously, sometimes it's not as correlated. But man, if you can just get a somewhat unlucky touchdown or fluky thing, you can catapult over so many teams that kind of have the same things. Because you're playing a lot of 2v2s or 3v3s with people, so you have to find a way to get a kind of a path to success.
All right, let's move to running backs. Melvin Gordon, by far the most expensive running back this week in a good matchup at Dallas. He comes in at $8,100, and then the next two guys on the list are both out, so we drop straight to Jerick McKinnon at $5,200. Samaje Perine is probably going to be the chalk of all chalk this week, and he's in a great spot against the Giants. He's $5,000. No one left in that backfield to really take away any market share. Byron Marshall's the only other active running back they have right now after Chris Thompson went out. So I would expect to see like 80% of the snaps from Perine at least, and he's going to be involved in the passing game. He'll be involved rushing the ball. He'll be involved around the goal line. Like, that's exactly what you want, and you're getting a discount on his price right now, so I like Perine a lot. After that, it's Latavius Murray, Alfred Morris, Orleans Darkwa, Austin Eckler, Amir Abdullah, and then Theo Riddick down at $3,600. I actually kind of like Theo Riddick. If you need the savings, I feel like he is the sort of player this week that's going to get involved a lot in the passing game, and he has a great history on Thanksgiving on these short slates. So I like Theo Riddick at $3,600.
I was just about to say, I feel like he always plays well on Thanksgiving. I'm always watching that game, and he just has like 5 catches in the first quarter and scores. Yeah, this is going to be interesting because you have Gordon is in his own tier, and then you have Perine, who is going to be the most popular guy on the slate, Darkwa, who I think makes a lot of sense, and then you can pay down for the Lions running backs. It's hard to say don't play Perine just because it sets up so well. He has to play. There's nobody left, obviously, with Thompson going down. So I'm actually kind of interested in Darkwa, though, and I might pair two of the somewhat cheap running backs, and then I can basically load up at the rest of the positions if I do look to fade Melvin Gordon this week.
Yeah, well, if you look at the Washington game just right off the outset, they're 7.5-point favorites in that game. So you think that game flow would favor Perine there, plus all the market share that you have going. Like, it seems like game script wise, he is in the best position. And when it comes to Gordon and fading Gordon, you think that the Chargers score points against the Dallas defense, but Austin Eckler has been it's tough to really gauge what his role is going to be. Obviously, he got involved against the Bills, but they were up by 7,000 points, and they put in the JV squad to play against them for like a half. And so Austin Eckler was on the field a lot. Do you think that people will gravitate towards him instead of Gordon, potentially because of the savings, but because they look at his stat line and it might just rate out really well for what his price point is?
Yeah, I think some people will definitely do that. I'm not going to. I think he's 2 weeks in a row, it's been somewhat fluky things. He had a couple of really nice runs. He broke a pass and scored. And then last week is a total outlier because, like you said, the game was out of hand. So, why would they? On a short week, that obviously they wanted to get their starters out as fast as they could. I don't know if I'm going there. I'd rather pay the extra for Darkwa. And Perine, again, you said it. Favorable game script. He's the kind of guy, he can handle a huge workload. At Oklahoma, they used to give him the ball. Felt like every play. And since he has no competition, I would expect 20-plus touches from him, honestly.
The other guy that I really like on this slate, and I think that their eyes will go down to Latavius Murray because he's $4,900 coming off the 2-touchdown game. And, well, that could very well happen again this week. The Minnesota defense is a lot better. I would expect more passing. The Detroit defense is a little bit better than what they played last week in terms of the Rams' rush defense. The Rams' pass defense, very good. The rush defense, not the greatest. And maybe if there's a one-yard goal-to-go opportunity, Murray gets the ball. But I kind of like Jerick here as they try to spread out the offense a little bit, try to get a little bit up-tempo. And if the Lions can compete on the scoreboard a little bit, I think we see a lot of Jerick. And I think people will be soured on him because, A, he's expensive, and B, he underperformed last week. But I think this is a really nice spot where his receiving gives him a decent floor to begin with. And if he can break a big one, it's going to be really, really big. And it could lead to a giant day. And if we talk about ownership, I think he's the guy that ends up getting under-owned from this tier.
Yeah, I think he does fall into, obviously there's not really ranges because it's such a short slate, but he's in that dead zone because everyone is going to go to Perine and then either up to Gordon or I think one of the cheapies. So he's kind of the lost guy there. Yeah, you said it. He had 5 catches last week. On DraftKings, that's so huge. You get 5 for 20, that's 7.5 points right there. It really raises the floor. Big upside. It does scare me because he is, with Murray there, they kind of can vulture themselves. And he's, I do expect Detroit to play well in this game. Not that I fear the defense too much, but I'm going to be running a bunch of teams, and I definitely will have McKinnon exposure, no doubt.
The last situation that we didn't really talk about is the Dallas backfield. Obviously, since Denzel Perriman came back, the Chargers' run defense has been a bit better. Obviously, they couldn't shut down LaShawn McCoy, but Alfred Morris and Rod Smith are not LaShawn McCoy. But Morris is somewhat expensive. Rod Smith is not. Rod Smith actually played more snaps than Alfred Morris did on Sunday. So if you think that the Chargers can jump out to a lead in this game, Rod Smith, I think, becomes a little bit interesting here. I don't love him, but you probably don't need to save the money, but if you do, it feels like everyone's going to go to Riddick, and I like that move a lot better. But if you want to get a little bit contrarian and play a pivot play, I think Rod Smith does make some sense.
Yeah, I like him more than Morris. I really have no limited interest in Dallas as a whole, especially on the ground. But yeah, he got the opportunities. He was just not good, which is never a bad thing. I mean, volume in most sports, including football, is huge. If he's going to get those same carries, you can't really project. He should obviously be better, and he's at home in a game script that could be favorable to him. I agree, though. I do lean Riddick. I like the way that sets up. He's kind of shown it a little more, and you're not getting a big discount, basically no discount to Rod Smith. So depending on how my rosters line up, I haven't dug into it too hard. I'm waiting for some injury news and whatnot. If you really need a cheapie, I could see going there, but on a short slate, you might not need to get that extreme, and if I don't, I probably won't have much.
All right, let's move to receiver Adam Thielen, the man with at least 5 receptions in every single game. Top 5 receiver this year, is the most expensive on the slate. He's only $7,600 though, so if you fade Melvin Gordon, his high price tag, you can have Thielen and Keenan Allen and Des Bryant if you really wanted to. So Thielen 76, Keenan Allen coming off the big game 73. Sterling Shepard, still no word yet on if he's going to play. It was a migraine issue, so he's suffering from like Percy Harvin syndrome now. He's $7,000. If he plays, he might end up lined up against Josh Norman. Do you think that he would be a fade, or do you think that people will fade him because of the migraines? He could get knocked out early, thus ending your day. But it's a situation where we talked about the game script for Pirine being great as 7.5-point favorites. As 7.5-point dogs, you would expect that the Giants are going to be throwing the ball a lot, and if Sterling Shepard is healthy, then he's going to get double-digit targets.
Yeah, I mean, he's in play for me if he's playing. I know, obviously, he may draw some Norman, but Norman doesn't shadow. So depending on where they move him around, and, it's not invincible, and the Giants have limited options. Honestly, I mean, well, just basing it off last week, I'm hoping that if he does play, that'll open it up for Ingram, because clearly when he doesn't play, obviously, Ingram didn't do anything. Thielen is just ridiculous at this point. Every time I think his price can't get higher or he can't keep it up, he does. I want to fade again, though. I really think it's an interesting – I would prefer Diggs. Honestly, I mean, you're getting $1,300 difference. I think Diggs is more explosive. Obviously, Thielen's been doing it week after week. But, yeah, there's a lot of those receivers kind of in that next tier that do interest me this week.
See, I really like Golden Tate here because I would assume that Xavier Rhodes puts his focus on Marvin Jones. It could be Kenny Golladay, but I doubt he's going to go into the slot and follow Golden Tate around all game. So Riddick and Tate, those short passes, especially with a bad offensive line, a good pass rush coming from Minnesota, those short A-dot routes make a lot of sense. And what he's able to do with his abilities after the catch, Golden Tate can be somewhat hit or miss from time to time, but if it's a game where they have to pass, he could seek out double-digit targets here, and if he ever gets double-digit targets where his routes are so short, that's usually good for like 8 or 9 catches.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Detroit's one of those teams, it seems like week to week you kind of have to reset with them. Marvin Jones has a big week, then Tate does, then Jones. And I agree, I think Xavier Rhodes takes out Marvin Jones in this game, which is going to force Stafford to kind of bump up the rest of its, whether it's Riddick, Tate, dare I say Ebron, which is disturbing in itself. And then right below them you have Jamison Crowder, who I also think is going to be popular. Obviously Thompson, he is a pass-catching back. Where do those targets go? Do they go to the outside with Doxson, even Grant, who caught a wide-open touchdown, which was kind of odd. Obviously Crowder seems to be getting it together after that really slow start.
See, I like Doxson here because of his big play potential, that if someone's going to leak down the field and catch a big one, it's going to be Doxson, and he seems to be getting more and more and more involved in the offense. Obviously, Lattimore going out Sunday really benefited him the most of anyone, and that's why we saw sort of a suppressed target load for Jamison Crowder, at least early in that game, plus the fact they didn't have to pass much until they had to again when the game went to overtime. But I like Doxson better than I like Crowder this week. He's $4,700. I think you can make a case for Golladay Galladay at $3,800, that if Rhodes is going to be on Marvin Jones, someone could get downfield. That's more likely to be Galladay than Golden Tate. But I really like Cole Beasley at $3,600. The narrative earlier in the year was that slot receivers can really beat up on the Chargers, and maybe Perriman changes that a little bit, but I think I feel more comfortable with some of the other high-end guys over Dez, and then dropping down and taking Cole Beasley if I need the savings at receiver.
Yeah, I mean, he should benefit just because, I mean, you touched on it before. The Chargers pass rush, especially if Smith doesn't play, is going to be all over Dak. He's not going to have as much time as he wants, so that does help someone like Beasley with those short routes, kind of as a safety valve, and at that price, he really doesn't need much. Receiver in general, though, I think I'm more likely to pay up than the running backs that we touched on. I think is where I'm going to be saving more, and then I'll probably pepper most of the elite guys. The only one that I'm kind of up in the air about is the top guy with Thielen. I think if I think that his ownership is really going to be up there, I'm going to look the other way.
All right, let's move to tight ends. Evan Ingram does come in at number 1. He had a terrible week 11. Really mired with a lot of drops, too, and he had a pass interference that negated a giant catch for him. So, bad situation for him. Do you think that recency bias will play in and people will gravitate away from Evan Ingram? I mean, he's $6,100. Vernon Davis is the second most expensive tight end on this slate at $5,500. Then you got, Jordan Reed is probably just not going to play at $53. And then you have to drop all the way down to Jason Witten next. And then Kyle Rudolph is the only other one above $5,000. So if people are trying to save money, they likely won't pay all the way up to Evan Ingram. Do you think you might do that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I guess I'm looking for the double punishment because I was almost all in on him last week, and that was the missing link for doing really good things. Yeah, I'm going back. That game was bizarre in many ways. I don't know if it was the wind or whatnot. And Shepard, bringing back. Obviously, it's going to be added targets that will go to him, but there's plenty for Ingram too, and maybe that just forces Washington to kind of not overload on him. So I have no problem going back to him. Yeah, we have to check Jordan Reed. I would say he doesn't play either, but if he does, he's got good Thanksgiving splits. I was just talking to someone about that. And then I do think, dare I say, Ebron again if I go cheap. Not looking to do that. I don't know if you really need to. Again, you have to see how your teams fall, but with Xavier Rhodes, I think is going to play a big part in kind of boosting up these other targets for the Lions.
Well, Ebron is $3,100. Would it be crazy just to play Kyle Rudolph at $4,100?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm honestly planning to do on some teams is what you talked about, is pair two guys up like that. I don't think anyone's going to do that. Kind of a weird combo, whether it's Ingram and Rudolph and Ebron and Ingram, kind of roll those through and see how the rosters fall. Because another thing with 3-game slates is the first step is being unique. I mean, if your team is duped, your EV is shot. So that's not what you want to do, obviously. You want to make sure you get a unique lineup. And then the one guy, I mean, we didn't really talk about Jason Witten, who he had a bad game last night. I don't really like him. There's nothing that stands out about it. But he's always live. He has some red zone looks. Don't really mind it, but it's not a great matchup in my opinion.
No, it's not. Well, let's not overthink this. If Jordan Reed sits, Vernon Davis plays the Giants. Isn't he just the play?
Yeah, here we go. I mean, the streak continues. They actually had to face a good tight end last week, but not that they do anything against him. Anyway, yeah, it does. I still would go up and get Ingram if it's May. I think that's an angle that's become so mainstream, and it's a very viable one, don't get me wrong. But it obviously inflates the ownership on anyone who the Giants are facing at tight end. So I'll just take Ingram. To me, he's in a different class. He's not even really a tight end. He's a hybrid. He's just so athletic. He can really smash that tag, where Davis, I'm not sure how big the ceiling is at 5,500.
Well, I guess when we talk about maybe using a tight end in your flex, could that be the way to do it? Because I doubt people might do the double tight end, but it'll usually be a pay up, pay down situation to save money. What if you just went Ingram and Davis?
Yeah, I mean, if you, again, if we talked about those running backs, if you kind of pay down there, you can take the 2 top tight ends and you'll have plenty of room to still have, viable quarterbacks and wide receivers. The pricing isn't so tight on the slate that you won't have a problem doing that. And I don't think a lot of people are going to pair up the tight end in that game, which is, again, a very viable strategy. Don't mind that at all.
Well, if you go Pirine and Riddick, let's say, at running back, and then you put Ingram and I don't know why I have Melvin Gordon in there. If you put in Evan Ingram and Vernon Davis, that gives you an average remaining salary of $5,900, and that's even before you take a defense. So you can basically afford anyone else you want if that's the strategy that you go. And even if you upgrade, let's say you don't go Theo Riddick and you go Jerick McKinnon at $5,200, you still have $5,600 for an average. So if we just put in a random defense, say the Chargers, they're $2,800. Now you're up to $6,400 remaining per player. And basically, like you said, you can do anything that you want. And I don't think that people will double pay up at tight end. And if you think that if you really want to play Vernon Davis, but you're scared that he's going to be chalky and your lineup might get duped because of it, I think this is a way to sort of mitigate his high ownership, is just by taking a roster construction that no one else is going to do.
Exactly. That's exactly the strategy you want. You kind of have to think of it. If you take Vernon Davis, you're competing against all the other Vernon Davis teams to be unique.
Which could be 40%.
Exactly. Absolutely. But then you have to take that 40% and say, okay, what percentage of them uses another tight end? Maybe it's 10%. And then out of that 10%, who's using maybe, say, Ingram? And now you're down to, a couple of percent, and then you work off that. So that's how you have to differentiate within Vernon Davis. So if he smashes, you're not just with the pack. You can kind of separate with the other ways that you've constructed your team.
Last guy to give you a shout out for if you're taking an absolute punt at tight end. I know it's risky and it could lead to a big zero, but he did drop a touchdown yesterday, so he's still getting used down there, and he looked weirdly athletic for a really old man, but Antonio Gates is the min.
Antonio Gates, I know. I was scrolling through and I saw him down there, and it's just, yeah, he's still doing it. I'm as much as I do like him, I don't know why. Hunter Henry, I think, is going to continue to get better and better. He's a really interesting guy. Yeah, I don't think on this slate you need to do that. That's a little too extreme for me, but yeah, he's still getting some looks, and it is a red zone target where basically, literally, if he catches a touchdown, you're done. I mean, that's what you need. So an extreme emergency, that's fine, but the way I'm just looking over these teams, I won't have to dip that low.
All right, finally, let's go to defenses. The Skins are $3,600 at home against 7.5-point favorites. The Vikings, $3,300. They represent the best pass rush going up against the worst offensive line of any team on this slate. That's usually something I like to target. The Chargers are 28. The Lions are 27. Cowboys, 25. And the Giants are $2,200 on the road in Washington. At sort of first glance here, I think that no one's going to own the Cowboys, and their pass rush has actually been quite good. The problem is the Chargers' offensive line has been excellent so far this season, keeping Rivers upright, but Rivers can always have these Rivers games where he throws like 4 picks. He might throw 3 touchdowns at the same time, but you're only really concerned about those turnovers and that leading to some touchdowns. So I think that's a sneakier defense. I don't love it. The Vikings are probably objectively the best, maybe the second best play. The Chargers are probably the best play of the week at $2,800 if Tyron Smith misses the game. Just they're going to be open season on Dak.
Yeah, so the Chargers, I think, is the best play, and then you look at the price tag, they're going to be the most popular. And then if you look at the game log, they're going to be even more popular because they just crushed it. For me, I always look kind of who's the natural pivot. You look for the same price. I don't mind the Lions as my off-the-wall play. At home, early start, I think they're fired up. Not that, Keenum's been good, and the Vikings are rolling, but I do think some regression is coming there. I think I'm a little kind of lower on the Vikings as a whole than most. I'm off Thielen for the most part, and I don't love it. Yeah, obviously, and then you can pay up for the Redskins and at home. You would think they would overmatch the Giants. I don't know what last week was from the Giants. That was somewhat of a miracle. So that's probably where I'll go. And then my one-off will definitely just be the Lions as kind of a swerve from the Chargers.
The one thing about the Redskins' D is it doesn't really generate a ton of turnovers. Like, they've only had double-digit DK points once since week 3.
Yeah, which is weird because the Redskins' defense has a good pass rush, and they get after people. I don't know. They're
what I like to call the anti-Sean Marion, where Sean Marion was a much better fantasy player than a real-life player, than an elevated sort of what people thought of him as a real-life guy. The Redskins' defense is the opposite. It's a pretty good real-life defense, but it's not a very good fantasy defense.
Yeah, for me, I do still think that it's somewhat of a variance, and I kind of want to buy low. The regression will come. I know there is some talent to getting, obviously forcing turnovers, definitely, but scoring's a little more fluky. I don't know why they don't translate. Yeah, it is true. It's just like anything. We talk in golf all the time. You want guys outscoring their placement points, and it's the same concept here. You'd rather have the Saints defense, who to me are the opposite of the Redskins, where they score, it feels like, every week, but they also let up a lot of points here and there. But yeah, God, the Giants with Eli on the road, last week notwithstanding, I still think they've got serious issues.
Well, okay, let's talk about game stacks then before we get out of here. And it seems like we really like Washington. They're obviously the biggest favorites on the slate. But do you get yourself into a situation where you just can't play every Redskin? Like we like Cousins, we like P. Ryan. Doxson could be a decent play here. Vernon Davis, their defense. Like, someone's not going to perform from this group, aren't they?
Oh, no, yeah, absolutely. I mean, on short slates, though, you really can be a little more extreme and go super high leverage. But unless it's a wild game, I'm not sure I'm going to have, 5 Redskins in there. I do like that game the best. I mean, my strategy just right now, obviously it's only Monday, is it looks like the first game I'm going to probably play a fade. I may have just like a Lions defense and someone like Riddick, and then work my way up to the last 2 games, which I think are going to be a little more opened up. Obviously, you got to check the weather in Washington. But, yeah, I mean, Cousins, he slings it. He does pass it around. They do have some injuries, obviously, so there are viable targets, but it's tough to load up on 4 guys and hope that they all get there. You need a huge game from Cousins.
I think I might actually go and stack the first game, the Vikings-Lions. It probably has all the totals aren't out yet. I would assume that has the lowest one. But I think that both these offenses can score, and they both have big play ability. And I think for something like a short slate, if you're shooting for upside, that's something that you can kind of focus on. And one of the big things I really like about stacking the early game, and I experienced this 2 years ago with the Lions. I think it was 2 years ago. Whenever Riddick went off, I had basically the nuts coming out of the first game, and then I was able just to pivot onto all of the chalk for the last 2 games and make sure that no one passed me. So I think that if you can hit on that game, it gives you the ability to use the late swap to your advantage, and then you can really kind of go hog wild and cash big.
So yeah, that's a good thing to kind of point out. If you're playing a lot of teams, this is a situation where late swap is actually going to be similar to the way it was kind of in NBA when they had it, where you got to kind of be on it, and there is a block element to it. If you're running a bunch of teams, you might want to spread it out as the games get later, depending on how your start. And I'm kind of on the opposite wavelength in the sense that I'm hoping that people will chase that first game and try to have more exposure than they should. If it plays low, there's going to be a lot of teams that are kind of hurting / dead already, and then I'll be playing with a reduced field against teams where I have the predominant weapons from the later games.
Ben Rasa, check him out on Twitter at JazzRazDFS and all of his work up on fanvice.com. You, sir, have a happy holiday.
Yeah, appreciate that. Get some rest. You got a nice golf break, so you can focus on everything else. And then, like I said, come January, back in action on the golf front.
Yeah, I do want to throw out, too, if people are interested about fantasy golf and betting on golf or anything like that, check out fantasynational.com. The simulator this week was hot fire. If you just basically took the top 20 guys from the simulator, only 2 of them missed the cut, which, considering there was only 1% of teams that got 6 to 6 through the cut this week, it paid off bigly, as the president would say.
Yeah, no, this is that's a whole nother show, but yeah, I've never seen a cut quite like that this week.
And if people are looking for, they want to take a break from their families on Thanksgiving, God knows I would. Being in Canada, I'm not getting any days off. I'll be working Thursday and Friday to provide all of you content. So when you want to take a break, you come listen to some new Pat Mayo experiences. But I'll be doing a live Periscope around 2:30 or whenever the first game ends on Thursday. I'll be doing a live Periscope to get you ready, maybe some late swaps we can talk about. So I'll be around on Periscope. You can find that through Twitter at the PME. Remember to check that out. Thank you, Ben, for being on the line. But up next, we're doing spread picks and game previews with Tim Andercuss, so stay tuned. Welcome back to the Pat Mayo Experience. Thanks again to Ben Rasa for being on the line. Now, we need to do our game-by-game previews, spread picks, and maybe some free money coming your way to bet against the free money. Because someone's going to be on the line picking these games, and his name, Tim Andercuss.
Tim Andercuss.
That is not my name.
No, I heard it was your name.
Well, then you heard lies.
No, I think I heard truths.
No. If there's one thing that is certain in this world, is that I am not CUST, and therefore not named that.
No, I don't think that people agree with that whatsoever. And you're the man of the people. The people are telling you one thing. You just don't want to believe them.
feel like if I put a poll up on that, it would be heavily in my favor.
Oh, you know what? You should put a poll out on that right now.
What should I entitle? I shouldn't have said that.
Am I CUST? Question mark. Yes or no?
All right. I won't. Maybe I won't do that.
No. Oh, now you don't want to poll the people because you're afraid of what it might say?
Do the people think that I'm in inverted commas CUST?
Why inverted commas?
Well, because I don't want. I like to use those instead of just to insinuate that I that way it's a trigger for the people to know which way to vote.
They'll probably just vote against you. You know that, right?
Well, we're gonna find out.
That's what they do with your polls. That's why it always ends up like 98% against whatever you think.
I got a good feeling about this one, but I just posted it.
I can't wait to check the early returns of this. How long did you set the 100%? Yes. So far. So you're off to a hot start with this one.
You just voted for it.
Well, my vote counts just as much as anyone. I'm part of the people.
That's true.
All right, let's get into the games. First game up, Minnesota at Detroit. This game opened as a pick'em, has already moved to -2 Minnesota within like an hour of that line being out. People are smashing the Vikings in this situation, coming off a big win against the Rams. The Lions, they squeaked by the Bears. They still won. I actually kind of like Detroit in this game. I feel like they can slow the pace down a little bit. Their defense has been a little bit better than I think the people give it credit for. And Minnesota, while being a good team, it feels like a letdown spot. Detroit, used to playing on Thanksgiving. Minnesota, not so much. I mean, we saw them last year, not so great on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's weird that they gave us a rematch in back-to-back years in the first game, Minnesota-Detroit, on Thanksgiving. Kind of unimaginative. I'm with you, though. I think the Lions are the way to play this game. You see people are smashing the Vikings, so this would make this a what I would call a Jimmy Richard game, in that people are smash-ems on the other side.
Oh, I thought you meant that they stared at the sun too long, and now they ain't quite right.
Well, they can't do that indoors at the Lions game, but that's also a good point. Yeah, I mean, the Vikings played impressively yesterday, we're recording this, of course, Thursday morning before the games. The Vikings were impressive.
People are going to know that we didn't record it Thursday morning before the games because it's coming out on Monday afternoon.
Aha. The Vikings were impressive yesterday against the Rams. They shut down those prolific offense in the game. So that's commendable. A short week against a divisional opponent, and it's also still indoors. Like, all these things kind of play well for Minnesota, but I just have this feeling that, Detroit knows how to play on Thanksgiving. They're at home. It seems like the world wants to take the Vikings. The Vikings are sort of like locked. People think they're locked into that divisional spot. This is a big game for the Lions. They're desperate for this game. I think they need it. Depending on how the Seahawks-Atlanta game goes, Detroit could hop into a wild card spot with a win in this game. It's a very interesting, where the other two games are less impactful on how the season will end up. I think this game is really interesting and critical. And I think, the Lions get it done at home.
DVOA hasn't updated for the week after Week 11. We're still using the Week 10 numbers. But right now, the one thing that would concern me is that Detroit is playing behind a very subpar offensive line, and Minnesota's pass rush has been really, really good. The one thing that the Lions have done to mitigate all that has been getting the ball out quickly, running a lot of short routes. And if you think that Xavier Rhodes takes out Marvin Jones in this game, which is more than likely, then you're going to see a lot of Theo Riddick. You're going to see a lot of Golden Tate. Maybe Kenny Golladay can get going if he can sneak behind the defense. He's been sort of their stretch receiver when defenses play too much on the side of Marvin Jones. I just think that Detroit can score with Minnesota, and that's not something a lot of teams have been able to do with Minnesota.
Completely correct. I think the game will come down to whether Detroit can convert in the red zone. It's that simple. The Lions, have lost games like the game against the Steelers because they cannot punch it in. Against Minnesota in a tight game where I think points are at a premium, if the Lions can turn red zone trips into majors, they'll win. And if they can't, if they're kicking field goals, I think they'll lose. I understand why the world's on the Vikings, but I bet you that took a lot out of them to beat the Rams in a really big, important home game the way it did. And to turn around on a super, super short week and have to play Detroit is just too tough of a spot. And, Stafford's the better quarterback, and so I'm getting the better quarterback at home, getting points in division. My my intuition tells me to take the Lions.
Yeah, I'm with you. I am with you on that. I'm going to take Detroit as a home dog. And if the line has already moved 2 points within an hour of the line being out, you might even get a better number.
I agree.
So we're both on the Lions. We'll have I'll post Feinberg's picks as a part of the cheat sheet that comes along with this. But obviously, Jeff not available this morning, and he hates making picks on a Monday. Tim and I don't care because our picks are bad.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me.
Next game. The Los Angeles Chargers of San Diego are taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Who you got, Tim?
I have the Chargers, actually.
This game is off the board in a lot of places, but there's a few lines that have it out as a pick'em, which is kind of crazy for the Chargers, considering like if this game was played 4 weeks ago, it would have been like -7 Dallas.
Completely. In fact, I even saw Jeff complaining on Twitter that the Chargers are a pick'em, that they should be bigger dogs. I actually think this game is a lot closer than some others think.
Do you think it's closer than Vegas thinks it is, since they have it listed as a pick'em?
No, but I think that the conventional wisdom is going to be all over the Chargers this week. The Chargers are going to be perhaps the heaviest play in terms of bets for the week. They're going to be the most bet on team. I would not be surprised to see Dallas win this game. Would not be surprised to see Dallas in a narrow way take it over in a very low-scoring game. I don't think much offense is coming in this game whatsoever. I think it's going to be an ugly, tight, 17-10 sort of game. However, the Chargers right now are playing really good football, or better football than the Cowboys are playing. And the Cowboys just can't seem to score enough to make a difference. So I think in a very tight contest, I would take the Chargers, but not a whole lot of confidence in it.
Yeah, the covering kids, the Los Angeles Chargers of San Diego. They love covering spreads, especially close spreads, and that's what we got this week. You and I were talking briefly off air about why this game is off the board, and you happen to think it had to do with Ezekiel Elliott, which doesn't make
I don't think it has to do with that.
It has to do with Tyron Smith potentially not playing. If he doesn't play, the Chargers are going to win.
But yeah, I've never in my life seen a line be off the board because of an offensive lineman. That's what I'm saying. If that's true, what you're saying is correct. This is probably the first time that's ever happened.
I'm saying that it's part Smith, it's part Sean Lee, whether or not he plays or not as well. But, like, we've seen the last 2 games. Without Smith, teams are just getting pressure on Dak. And as it turns out, Dak under extreme pressure, not the best.
No, I mean, against the Eagles, Dak just looked altogether mediocre. Bad passes, not sharp. Very disappointing. I don't know. I think Ezekiel covers up for a lot of those problems, evidently. And having, of course, a full complement offensive lineman is really important, too. But this is still the Chargers. That must be said. The Chargers find ways to lose games all the time. This is not a trustworthy team, really. So just because Dallas is playing poorly and the Chargers are playing well doesn't mean that Dallas just won't come in here and take them down. It reminds me a lot of that Thanksgiving game, though, between the Chargers. I think it was the Panthers and Cowboys a couple years ago.
Yeah, and the world. But it's funny you say that, because I wanted to bring that up, because you said that people are going to smash the Chargers in this spot, and I just don't think that's going to be the case. I mean, realistically, the Chargers, I think, should be favored in this game, and that's what happened in that Carolina game. I remember it very vividly, because Feinberg and I were talking about it. We were doing the show then. It was -1 Carolina, and the world pounded Dallas in that game. Like, oh, Dallas Thanksgiving. Dallas is just such a public team, and no one believed in the Panthers, and the Panthers were legit free money that week.
Yeah, I remember it. I mean, I remember taking Dallas, too.
But I don't think that the Chargers are going to be the most played-on team of this week. I really don't.
Maybe. I kind of think they will be, but even because it's the marquee Thanksgiving matchup, it's the 5 o'clock game, it's the Cowboys, it's the one that will get the most eyeballs. I really have a tough time with this game. I looked at it for a while because I don't like either team. I don't trust either team. Neither team has earned my trust. But in the end, I think that the Chargers are playing slightly better football, so I'm taking the Chargers.
So the Chargers right now have the number 3 defensive line in terms of getting to the quarterback and adjusted sack rate. And Philly, who was able to get to Dak all day long, they have the 18th best pass rush. And Atlanta, who was able just to destroy them in the backfield 2 weeks ago, had the 14th best pass rush. Like, if it's a situation where Dak was under duress anyway without Smith around, this week's going to be the worst for that.
You would think so, but it is a short week, so you wouldn't expect the Chargers' pass rush to be at 100% sort of like charge strength. But
Why?
I buy that completely because it's a super short week. It's 3.5 days rest. Just I don't expect them to have the same fervor that they would have had with a week off.
I would actually think that a short week would impact the offensive line more than it impacts the defensive line.
In this case, I don't. In this case, I would disagree. But either which way, I agree with you that it's a really bad situation for the Cowboys line. It's a tough spot, but the Chargers are stupid and will make bad coaching decisions and will probably turn the ball over a couple of times. And it's a weird game to handicap.
Well, I mean, one of the reasons that Dallas was able to keep that game close with Philly, at least through a half, is that their pass rush is actually quite good, and the offensive line for the Eagles isn't great. It's been a better run-blocking offensive line since Jason Peters went down than it has been pass protecting Carson Wentz. He's just been able to elude a lot of that pressure and get the ball out under duress really well. The one good thing about the Chargers is their offensive line is really good.
Certainly, and I mean, what the decisive factor was last night was that Philadelphia went on like 4 straight long touchdown drives in the second half and just absolutely devoured the Cowboys. I don't know that the Chargers can do that. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm almost trying to talk myself out of the Chargers in this spot, but I'm not going to do that. I have this deep-seated fear that Dallas is going to win this game, and I don't know why.
Oh, I have a fun update for you.
Let's not.
Remember how you, it's funny, we're recording the show back-to-back with the Waiver Wire show. You said on the Waiver Wire show no coaches would get fired?
Oh, no, please don't tell me someone got fired.
The Broncos have fired offensive coordinator Mike McCoy, a.k.a. Ellen DeGeneres. No one's going to be happier than Jeff Feinberg right now.
He just tweeted out, Ellen. Okay, fair enough. Okay, it wasn't a head coach, so I will take that as only a partial loss, but that is kind of crazy. I did say that someone will get fired, and then they did get fired.
It's been less than 15 minutes.
It has been. Oh, dear.
Another curse. Another curse just to put on another notch on your belt.
Well, thankfully that podcast is probably in production, so you can't, like, call attention to it.
No, it's already out.
That's what I mean. Like, you can't, like, cut in a scene or something where you say, hey, listen to this or something.
Yeah, that's true. Also, your poll right now, 93% of people think that you're CUST.
Well,
that's just an update right now. I can see that swinging even larger.
I'll have to tweet out some photos of adorable things and get the people to back me.
What would you consider adorable things?
I don't know, like a kitten playing with a ball of string.
Would you even know how to tweet that out?
I could find a GIF of it.
See, that's just the fact that you call it a GIF makes you so fucking CUST. It's unbelievable.
You mean by using the proper term?
The people don't use that term, Tim.
The person who created it
Who
does.
cares what the person who created it thinks? It was put out to the people. People call it GIF.
Well, I think that the people should back off, and if the owner calls it that, then that's what it needs to be called.
He's not the owner of GIFs.
He's the creator of them.
So what? And then now it's been appropriated by the people.
Well, then perhaps I am now standing athwart those people and saying, listen, let's pull back a little bit.
No, you're fucking CUST. That's stupid.
I am not CUST.
No, you're 93% of people think that you're CUST. Which
I'm actually quite rattled that an offensive coordinator got fired.
Yeah, you should be. Last game. The New York Jumbo Giants at the Washington Redskins. The Redskins are favored by 7.5 points. I had thought this line would actually be a lot higher, but the Giants playing 40-mile-per-hour winds and beat the Kansas City Chiefs, who were cursed, and here we go. And all of a sudden, I feel like we're getting a discount on the Skins here. I like the 7.5.
I do too. The Giants can't muster up 2 performances like that in a row. At least I don't think they can. I think part of the reason the line is so low is that the Redskins gave up a game where they were 99.8% favored in. That's like a Hillary versus Trump ratio that they gave up in that game. So the Skins once again relent. Is this what they do? The Skins always relent in big spots, and their season is now over. And the Giants got their win. They're feeling good about themselves, but I don't think they can amp themselves up twice in a row. And being on the road in a super short week, I'm sure it'll be pretty chilly conditions in Washington. I expect this to be a really bad game, like 30-7 for Washington. I think Washington crushes them.
Yeah, I think that Washington steamrolls in this spot too. So, I mean, last year we hit the 3-game parlay. I think 2 years in a row we've hit the Thanksgiving parlay, all 3 games. So this year I'm going Detroit, the Chargers, and the Redskins. Boom. I wouldn't call it free money like you would call it, but that's the wager that I will be making.
I have a free money Turkey Day teaser for the people.
All right, so let's see how this loses. So you're just for reference, you're now 2-9 for the year on your free money bets, and we took a anti-free money parlay last week. The first 2 games of your money line free money parlay, parlayed them the other way, and it was a winner.
Correct, but I feel almost as good about this one as the last one that I won when I said I felt the best about it. I feel 98% about as good as with this one. I don't see how it loses. We're going to tease the Lions up to 9. We're going to tease the team that never loses a tease, so the Chargers, up to 7. And we're going to tease the Skins down to a half point. Lions plus 9, Chargers plus 7, Redskins plus a half point. That is free money.
You're such a coward. Just parlay the 3 spreads together.
No, I'm not going to parlay the spreads together because that half point scares me enough with Washington. Even though I think it's going to crush them, I want to get a win on the board here. We need to get wins on the board.
I mean, you're going to need to do better than this if you want to get back to even money for the year.
Well, I appreciate that.
This is just a 1-for-1 bet.
But let's just get a win on the board, and we'll go more aggressive on Sunday and Monday.
Okay, well, maybe that could be...
Thanksgiving, I want to give the people a free gift. White meat, dark meat, free money. All will be served.
That'll do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. I'd like to thank Tim Andergust.
Tim Andergust.
Not CUST. And please, on that poll, go vote not CUST. If you vote no, he's not CUST, you're saving a kitten.
Oh, since we last checked in 30 seconds ago, it's now 94% of people think that you're CUST.
I tell you, folks, I'm not CUST. For the sake of justice, don't let them win this vote. Vote for me. Show the people.
This is the people who are voting, though.
No, this is just the people you've twisted and warped into voting against me.
I'm the one who warped them?
Yes.
That's me? Not just following along with whatever nonsense you're spouting that day?
Put it this way, folks. If you vote yes, I'll be forced to do my Christopher Walken impression next week, and you don't want that.
No, people love your Christopher Walken impression. It's the most dead on him. Can we get a tease of it?
Well, you see, when I was in A View to a Kill, people didn't think I was the proper villain for that movie because I was so young. But I actually was one of the best Bond villains ever because no one saw it coming. And I threw people out of Zeppelins, and I was really cool. I tell you, it gets better every time I do it.
You're so fucking CUST.
No, and the poll will turn my way. As far as I'm concerned, if I can get into double digits no's, I'm calling that a victory, just so you know.
So, again, this relates back to you being right 53% of the time. So you're claiming this is a victory for yourself if it's not over 90% against you.
If I get to 10%, I'm declaring victory.
This is why you're CUST.
So come on, people. For the sake of the universe, vote for me.
As they say, there's CUST, and then there's Andergust.
Tim Andergust.
Don't say that.
That's what they say.
That's lies.
No, not lies at all. I want to thank Ben Rasa for being on the line. You can follow him at JazzRazDFS. Check out all of his work up at fanvice.com. You can follow me at ThePME. And remember to subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience on Stitcher, on iTunes, and Google Play and Audio Boom for the audio versions, and up on the DraftKings YouTube page for the video version. You can find my cheat sheet for the Thanksgiving games up for the DraftKings cheat sheet up on DKPlaybook.com and up on my Facebook page, facebook.com/ThePME for the betting guide. I want to thank everyone for watching. Have a happy holidays and go win some cash. Help you pay for Christmas, all right? Pat Mayo, I'll see you next time.